Well, let's stick to that subject now and speak to Andrew Teacher, who's founder at Blackstock Consulting and formerly a spokesman for BA Heathrow. Well, thank you very much you're just there, just checking you're there. So first of all, tell me a little bit about what you think the impact might be. That's the question I just asked Alan there. What are your thoughts, though, on what passengers can expect in terms of the impact of this industrial action? At the moment, we don't have the set dates yet. That's expected in the coming days. But what can passengers expect?
I think they can expect another miserable summer of discontent after 2 years of COVID, countless IT problems with British Airways, and all of the fun that we saw during the recent half-term holiday. I think it is looking like a bit of a miserable summer for anybody looking to fly, which could potentially be good news for domestic tourism. It could be good news for the Eurotunnel and for the ferries if they don't go on strike as well. But sadly, for anybody looking to fly, it's going to fill customers with a huge amount of uncertainty right at that point in the cycle where airlines want to be getting trust back from customers after a pretty grim couple of years. And
with the what the strikes are about, it's this industrial action over a 10% pay cut that was brought in during the pandemic but isn't being reinstated in the long term. Is that something that there can be a resolution found easily?
Well, it's a difficult one because the airlines have been in a rock. They've been between a rock and a hard place over the last couple of years because those businesses were the first to shut. They were the last to reopen. And what the airline bosses have rightly said, and I agree with them, is that government policy has been changing at the flick of a switch. So they haven't been able to plan in the way that any business needs to, particularly businesses of such scale. But equally, I think what we've all seen over the last couple of years is there has been a shift in the public consciousness about service providers, about what we determine as key workers and how we think people should be paid. And I'll give you an example personally. I had a baby recently. We've got an 8-week-old boy upstairs, and I saw firsthand just how hard midwives, nurses, doctors work. And again, there's obviously a very big difference between somebody delivering a baby and somebody checking in your luggage to go to Spain. But my point is that there's a lot of key workers that do all sorts of things in our daily lives that aren't hugely well paid. And I think there has been a shift really in public sympathy towards these groups. I think the other, you can hear it there.
Yes, no, absolutely, I can. But Andrew, isn't the idea though that actually no one's saying that only these workers should be higher paid. No one's saying that means other public sector workers and key workers shouldn't get a pay increase. But if they've had this 10% pay cut and it's not reinstated in the long term, when you take into account the rate of inflation, that's actually rather a high real terms pay cut, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think also what we're now going to see, and you were reporting on it yesterday with the teaching unions, we are going to see a domino effect of all the union groups coming out because there's nothing for them to lose. We've got what some people consider to be a bit of a lame duck government. We've got an opposition that isn't really striking through with the public. And the unions have potentially got a good opportunity now to step up and reclaim some of the ground that they've lost over the last few years. But I think that the clear message here for businesses from a reputation perspective, there's three key things that I'd be advising people right now. One is being a bit more human in how they communicate with all sorts of audiences. One of the things that was cited by the union in their state, one of the unions, GMB, in their statement this afternoon, was the criticism around British Airways' recent profits coverage and how its boss is getting 4.9 million a year, all of these sorts of things that rub salt in the wounds a little bit of some of those lower paid staff. So if companies can be a bit more human in how they're thinking about all their audiences, that's going to help. I think also there needs to be a proper long-term view from British Airways on how its brand is going to develop and recover after the next few years. And companies tend to sometimes think too much in the short term and less about the long term. And I think that the third thing really here is that we are going to see more of this over the next few months, over the next year, and being sympathetic towards workers and investing in people is potentially something that people are going to need to think a lot more carefully about.
Oh, well, Andrew, thank you for your time and for your thoughts. I'll let you get back to your baby now.
Thank you. Take care.
That's Andrew Teacher there, who's the founder at Blackstock Consulting and formerly a spokesman for BAA Heathrow.